All right, good morning. For those of you that are on the West Coast with me, some people it might not be morning, might be Friday afternoon, evening, Saturday, don't know. But I'm super excited to be here this morning, and this is a live that I've been wanting to do for a while. And so I asked a couple of weeks ago in one of my Instagram polls about this topic around business models. Hi everyone who's joining, good morning, great to see you here. Hi Cherise, hi Amanda, so good to see all of you. And so this was one of the topics that I have noticed in my own coaching work and in the response I got from that Instagram poll that is, I would call it like a hot topic. Like people want to talk about it, but they're kind of uncomfortable or don't have a lot of confidence talking about the financials of their business and how to make money in their business. And so why this is so important to me is because I see so many soulful entrepreneurs, people who are wanting to do their soul work in the world, start businesses, and then not really be able to get traction with it. They treat it as a hobby and something that kind of makes money, but not the kind of impact we should be making with our soul work. Our soul work is the thing that only we can do. It's what we're here to do. And when we think about the immense value we can offer people and the world through our soul work, that has to match energetically with the value that we receive. And we'll talk more about pricing in a little bit here. So hey everyone who's joining live, hope you have your notepads and pens and stuff like that, because there's going to be lots of things that you can take notes on today. I've got I was writing my notes last night and I ended up with 7 pages. So I don't know how long this is going to go. I think probably about half an hour. And I'm going to take questions at the end too. So if you have any questions, write them down. If you want to come on live with me, you can, or you can just put them in the chat, totally up to you. So anyways, back to why I was talking about why this is important. So there's, the one side of it is that it's a real shame that people who are doing their soul work in the world can't make a business out of it or don't create the kind of business they want to. And there's some crazy stat, like 45% of all small businesses don't make it past 5 years. So there's like that side of it that I'm just so committed to supporting people with creating a thriving business. But then on the other side of it is that this year, in 2022 right now, more people than ever are saying yes to their soul work. I've had so many people leave their jobs that they are not happy in, wanting to start their own business, wanting to take their side hustle into something that's bigger, and just looking at their lives and saying, I had a client the other day, I was on the call with her and she's like, what the fuck am I doing? And like really getting clear that our time is our most precious resource. So how do we use it in a way that allows us to serve most fully and actually create a life for ourselves that we really want to be creating? So that's what I want to do today, is I want to really break down what it takes to create a business model that can create both impact and income in your business. Because so often it's not that we don't have clarity on the income goal itself. I'd say most people have some clarity around that. And if you don't, that's okay. We'll talk about that today too. But the gap is how to get there. And with any goal, if the path and the next steps aren't clear, if we don't have a blueprint to get to that goal, it's likely not going to happen, or at least it's not going to be as enjoyable as if we had a blueprint to follow. So I see some people on here that I know. It's so good to see you, Jen. Yeah, good to see ya. Okay, so there's lots of reasons why this is a hot topic where people aren't super comfortable talking about money. So there's the inner stuff, right? And so there's things like just not having confidence with financials or not feeling like we're good at handling our money. But there's also the really deep work that I think is so important to look at, and we're not going to have the scope or capacity to do that in this mini training, but really looking at the worth and our work being coupled together, and that being such a huge roadblock for people, especially service providers where our product is us. When we couple our worth to our work, holy shit, like that's going to get us in some hot water. So doing the inner work to really understand that those two things don't go together, and really creating a mindset around how you can create value through your work, but it not being tied to your value as a person or your value in terms of your soul work. And when we can do that, we can actually get really creative, and we can experiment with different ways to create revenue and income in our business, because we're not so afraid of failing, because it would suck, right? It sucks to fail if that means that we're a failure. So doing that inner work is important. And as I said, we're not going to get into it in this mini training, but it is something that I get into in my Activate Accelerator, which is a 6-month program that we do the inner mindset work. So there is a path. It's just not going to be here today in this training. Okay. So what else? What else do we want to talk? I want to talk about today. Oh yeah. So the combination of soul and strategy. So this is something that I'm really passionate about pulling together. Is we can have the strategy, we can have the outer business strategy, but if we don't bring the soul online, then we end up with something that doesn't feel good along the way. So we can have the revenue goal, we can hit the revenue goals. I work with so many people that are like, yeah, I'm hitting the number that I want to hit, but it feels like crap, or it's not. I started this business for freedom. I started this business so I could feel like I'm helping people, and I'm not doing that. So what's the point, right? So we want to bring both the soul and the strategy online, and we're going to talk about that in the 4th element that we're going to dive into today around volume. And it seems like a weird combo, but it's really where we can look at the soul essence piece, where we've got our soul blueprint, what our soul really is being called to, the energetic alignment in terms of what our soul wants to do in the world, and then we've got our business model blueprint. And when we overlay those and we can have those working together, that's where magic really happens. So my intention for you as you're watching this training, whether you're on here live with me or you're going to watch this as a replay, is to put your CEO hat on right now. So I'm calling you forward to really step into wearing the hat of CEO, whether you've started your business or not, whether you're making money in your business or not yet. You can wear the hat of the CEO and be like, if I were running a multi-million-dollar corporation, what kind of mindset would I have around the clarity I'd need to have around what I want, where I'm going, what resources I need, all of these questions. So if you are dabbling right now and you've kind of wearing this like hobbyist hat, I invite you to take it off for the moment and put on your CEO hat. And same thing is if you're avoiding the conversation or the digging into the financials of the business, sticking your head in the sand, this is an opportunity for you to really lean into whatever discomfort is there for you and just look at what would it actually mean to claim an income number that scares me a little bit? What comes up for me when I do that? Because often what does are those limiting beliefs, and then we can work on those. And again, we're not going to do the inner work here, but at least you'll have them. So you have some data and something to work with when you are doing that. So everyone that's here live, make sure to comment throughout, ask me questions, jot them down for the end. We're going to dive into the 4 elements now of the business model, the things you need to know. So this is the part where you probably want to write some of this down, and I'll try and track questions too throughout. But if I don't get to it, make sure you save it to the end. Okay, so let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a revenue goal. So we're going to talk about 4 elements, and I'll actually share them up front so you can track where we're going. So we're going to talk about revenue goal being the first thing, and we're going to talk about it being first because this strategy looks at reverse engineering your business model from what you want to create, right? So actually saying and owning and claiming what you want to make. And we're going to talk about 2 different numbers here, because when we do that, we can reverse engineer what that looks like and how that actually would play out in terms of your offers and pricing and volume. So those are the other 3 things. We're going to talk about your revenue streams, which are your offers, and really clarifying what those are, because when you clarify with so much precision what your offers are, what the value is of those offers, then the pricing becomes clear. And the pricing, when we get to that, I'm going to talk about how to create pricing that is from an inside out approach as opposed to an outside in approach. We'll get more into that when we get there. And then we're going to talk about volume, and volume really is where we bring our soul online and that soul blueprint online, so we can look at How does our work and our business actually contribute to, especially if we are a service provider or we're a big part of our business? This is going to look different, obviously, if you had a business that you weren't necessarily working so much in, but most of my clients are working in their business, still doing the deliverables. So we'll talk about it from that perspective. And when we look at volume, then we want to look at what it actually is, our energetic match there. What are we actually trying to create in terms of a vision? So that's where we're going to go. So let's start with revenue goals. So the first thing that I see come up a lot is people being fuzzy about this. So really having a hesitancy to own and claim what it is that they want to make. So I'm going to put this out to you right now, and I want you to write it down somewhere, is if you were to claim a number that scares you, but also feels attainable, what would that number be? And so you can think about this from an annual revenue number perspective. So let's play with that. So it might be hitting your first 6 figures. It might be getting into that multi-6-figure range, whatever it is. And once you've got that number, I want you to double it. And so when you double it, now feel into what happens. If you were to claim that as being your income number, where do you feel it in your body? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel contracted? And what kind of beliefs are coming up for you as you start to double it? So the reason I'm getting you to double it is most people tend to go low on this one. So there's something it depends, and this is where the money mindset work really helps, but it's like, do you really think you are worthy of claiming this big number? And my question for you is, why can't you? If that doubled number scared you, question that belief. Why can't that be? Now, when you come up with your revenue numbers, there's 2 things that might help here. The first thing is we're going to create a baseline revenue number. So the baseline revenue number is the number that you need in order to meet all of your needs without being worried about financials. So what is this number that would allow you to pay all your people if you've got support, to pay all your bills, to pay yourself a decent salary? Because remember, you need to pay yourself as well as the CEO of the business. So I want you to really look at and make sure you have clarity around what is your income number. That's the baseline number. And you can do that monthly. That usually is the most effective way, is to do that baseline number monthly. And then you can obviously times it by 12 to get your annual baseline revenue number. So having clarity on that baseline number, it's amazing how many people don't. And if you don't feel bad about it. But it really is the key to having a sense of security in your business and a sense of safety in your business. So if you know that number, then you kind of are like, okay, that's what I need to bring in order to feel like I have some breathing room and that I can actually create some safety there. Once you've got that, then we're going to go into your ideal revenue number. And this is why I got you to play with doubling it. And so I just saw a comment come in from Jen around the doubling my number scares me because I believe it's going to lead to burnout. So good. So it's not that you have to go with that doubled number. It's about playing with your range. So if that doubled revenue number is like my belief system right now says that it's going to lead to burnout, if we were to do some inner work, we might look at that as like, is that true? Are there other ways to reach that double number that might be able to support you when we look at your offers? But given what you know now, getting to that ideal revenue number, you want to look at what feels expansive, meaning like, yeah, I'm really excited to go after that. And it does stretch me a little bit. It does stretch me. And so the idea behind this baseline and ideal revenue number is now we have a floor and a ceiling. And the analogy I like to think about here is like a dartboard. So if we only have one revenue number, it's like the only way we can win is if we get that bullseye. And if the only way we can get the win is the bullseye, it doesn't leave much room for experimentation, for fun, for play. But when you have that baseline and that ideal, you now have some space in between the floor and the ceiling, and you can play with, how can I experiment with a new strategy, with a new offer, looking at different pricing, because you know what you need and you know what you're going after. So having those two numbers can be really helpful. My experience is when you actually break this down and you actually take this all the way through the 4 steps we're going to work through today, is that most people are surprised that their ideal revenue number is actually quite possible. Once we look at all the revenue streams, what pricing you would need to put around that and the volume. I just did a deep dive immersion one-on-one with a client the other day, and she's been in business for over 10 years. And she said, she's like, oh, I have never made that amount of money, and I didn't realize that it was so possible. It seemed out of reach. So doing this work is super helpful, again, to have that blueprint or that roadmap. So now we've talked about revenue goals. Let's leave that for a moment. We'll come back to that because, as I said, we're reverse engineering everything else. But how do we actually get to that revenue goal? Well, we're going to look at your revenue streams. So if we're looking at identifying your revenue streams, these are your offers. And so the more clear you can be on your offers, the easier pricing will come. So it's like really working on what does the offer entail and looking at it as an entire package, right? So it's like if you're a coach and you're doing a coaching program, what is the offer, the container from start to finish? If you're doing more of a product, that is totally fine too. But what are all of the impact, the value adds of that product? Looking at it from start to finish. The thing that I really want to spend some time talking about today when we're talking about revenue streams is identifying 2 different types of revenue streams. And this was such a game changer for me when I came across this idea and gave myself permission to incorporate both types of revenue streams into my business. So I'm going to talk about them as soul work and survival work. And soul work, this idea of soul work and survival work, I was inspired by some work in Bill Plotkin's body of work. He's the author of Soulcraft and a couple of other really great books on kind of doing your soul work in the world. That's his work. But he was inspired by a Native American teacher named Harley Deerswift. And Harley Deerswift talked about the difference, made a distinction between our sacred dance and our survival dance. And what I loved about how he put it was that our sacred dance is our soul work. It's what we should be doing in the world. But we have to master our survival dance first. And so that's what I'm calling survival work. And so when we look at it this way, we can start to create 2 types of revenue streams. We can create the revenue stream that we have that we're doing our soul work in the world. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time to get packaged, to get clear, to really articulate what it is and the value. And that doesn't mean that we can't still be successful or thriving in our business while we're doing that. So the survival work is work that's not draining, it's not soul-sucking work, but it instead really has you leverage your skills and the strengths that you've developed over time. They may not be your gifts, may not be the thing that you really want to be doing, but they're the things that can create lifeblood in your business and allow you to still hit that revenue number that would feel really expansive. So when you think about these 2 types of revenue streams, the trick is knowing when to start teetering off your survival work and amping up your soul work. So maybe at the beginning, and this definitely was my story. So I left a 6-figure corporate job in training and development. I was doing leadership development in companies, doing coaching and workshops and things like that. And when I left 6 years ago to start my business, I had no clients lined up. I just knew that that was my next step in my journey, and I was just going to go for it. But what happened was, like, I couldn't make a living doing just my soul work at that point. I needed to start building my online presence. I needed to get clear on even what my soul work was. And so what I started to do was more of what I call my survival dance. So I did some of the things that I had built a lot of skill around and strength around in my corporate experience, like doing leadership development workshops and doing leadership programs and things of that nature, and started to build my business around that. Then over time, as I got more clear on what my soul work was and was able to package it and start to understand how to communicate that, then I could start to bring down that corporate leadership development work and amp up the soul work. And this is the trick, because what I find is a lot of people get stuck in the trap of staying in the survival work. And then they're like, well, I don't have any time to work on the thing that I really want. So I got a question ahead of time that I'm going to answer at the end around how to do that. So stay tuned for that. But that will be the trick for you, as well as if you bring in both of these revenue streams, is really looking at how can you start to bring down the survival work as you amp up the soul work. So eventually over time, the soul work is the majority of your business. Anything else I want to say about that? I'm just checking my notes. No, I think that's good. So we're going to move on to pricing. So this is always an interesting one. If anyone's on here and you've got questions around pricing, you ask them away, because there is no magic formula in my experience for pricing, especially when it comes to a service-based business, when we're pricing our services. The coaching industry is infamous for this, right? If you are a coach and you're on here, you know that there's coaches out there that are charging $150 a session. And then there's coaches, I was on a sales page the other day, and this powerful, amazing woman has this year-long container that she's charging $100,000 for, and she's selling it out. So there's no right way around that. And so how I really like to talk about this and how I like to support my clients when it comes to pricing is around bringing your soul online and bringing some alignment into the game. So it's all about really finding that place that feels like an equal energetic exchange. Because when we think about money, all it is energy. And so we're exchanging money for energy. And when there's a disproportionate or it's uneven, it feels off. And you'll know this, right? If you've ever priced something and you don't feel confident in the price, like it's too high, someone's told you, you just need to raise your prices, and you just do it because they've told you to, but you haven't done the inner work to align your energy to that price, all the imposter syndrome stuff is going to come up, right? And so even if you have the elevated price, you likely won't be able to sell it because you're not going to feel confident around it. So we want to make sure that it's an equal energy exchange. And the same goes from underpricing or undervaluing your product, service, or offer. What usually happens there is resentment, right? And so we undervalue something, and then over time it's not a fair energy exchange. It feels like we're giving more energy than we're getting back, so we start to become resentful around it. So the key is finding that sweet spot that feels like that energetic match. And so one of the best ways I find to do this is to invest in yourself at the level that you want to be invested in at. So if you are, this can go for products or services, but I'll keep going back to services because I know that most of my clients are a service-based business. So for example, if you are someone who is doing, say, web design, and you have, a package, or you have an hourly rate around that, you want to really look at, would you be willing to invest in yourself at that same rate? And if the answer is yes, then have you? That's the next question. My experience is when we start to elevate our own investment in ourselves, we start to really understand the value of what we're offering. So for coaches, this is huge, right? Is like working with a coach that is at that level that you want to be invested in at, so you can see all of the added value that's part of your offer and service beyond the coaching calls and the conversations, because we know that the container is so much more than that. So that is the thing around pricing, is it's all about a value exchange. It's all about finding that energetic match so there feels like even flow. And what I want to invite you to think about is that none of this is permanent, right? You don't have to make this decision and then be like, oh my God, that's it forever. I often encourage people to put pricing, say, on their website, or to share it with somebody, pitch it, see how it feels. And then you can see, oh, was that off? Did that feel good? Did I feel strong in that? And when you get to that point, then you can start to really find that match, right? So it doesn't need to be get it perfect the right time. And I'll keep saying this over and over again with all of this, is experimentation and play is key in all of that. So the last piece we're going to talk about, actually timing. I thought this might take about 30 minutes. I had no idea, and I think it's going to take about 30 minutes. So that's pretty bang on. And then we'll open it up for questions. So if you're here, make sure that you can ask your questions and get some coaching. So let's talk about volume. So we've talked about what are your offers. We've talked about what you're going to price them at. And now we're going to talk about volume. How much of those offers do you need to be doing at the prices that you've given in order to hit that ideal revenue number? So this is the reverse engineering part. We started with the revenue number and now we're working backwards towards it. So this is the piece that, although it sounds like, well, I would need like 6 clients, or I would need to sell 100 units of that course. This is the part where you actually want to get beyond the logistics and beyond the tactics and tune into that soul blueprint. So what is your soul essence? Now, there's some archetypes we can work with here that can be helpful. So there's the entrepreneur archetype, who is all about expansion, building, making something big, and impacting lots of different people. That archetype, if you resonate with that, you might be all about creating those offers that are scalable, that can be offered at, a potentially lower price point, say like an online course or something like that. And at that point, then you can, really look to see how you can expand that offer and scale that offer. But that's not going to be for everybody. So again, you want to tune into that soul blueprint of yours. If that doesn't sound expansive or exciting to you, and you might be more of the teacher or coach archetype, where you like to go deep with people. So I work with a lot of coaches who are like, I don't want to work with 50 people. I want to work with a small handful of people and go really deep with them. And so you might look at the volume might be, my ideal number is 5 clients. But the package I'm going to offer those clients, the container that I'm going to hold for them, is going to be really deep. And then your pricing would then increase, right? So because you're offering more value, perceived and actual value, in that kind of container. So when it comes to volume, really look at what is aligning with your soul energy around how you like to operate in the world. You can also look at lifestyle pieces. So I was working with a client the other day and we were doing this work. We were reverse engineering their business model. And, we started with that revenue goal and I'm like, well, what would it look like to double it? Just like we did today. And what it looked like to double it would have been a 7-figure business, $1 million business. And so we played with that, right? Because this is all about experimentation. So we worked through what are her offers, what would she price them at? And what she looked at is, in order to do her soul work, because she was clear on her offers, in order to do that, she would have to create a big team around her. She would have to be likely, and Jen, this kind of goes to your point around leading to burnout. She would have to definitely be putting in a ton of time to get the business to there, where if she was able to just go deep with fewer clients and do more like depthful work, then she wouldn't have to do like all of the team and the systems and stuff around her. So actually, when it came to volume, it was about going smaller and deeper rather than wider and bigger. And I've had the opposite with people too. They're like, no, I want to create massive impact. I want to sell this online course and create $1 million through this online course, do $1 million launch. Okay, cool. It's all about your own preferences and your own energetic blueprint. So when it comes to volume, all you want to do is you want to get really clear on what is aligned for you, what kind of lifestyle do you want, and how does your business act as a vehicle to create that for you. And that's really like at the heart of all of this, is around how do you create a business that can create a life that you love while doing your soul work, because that's where you can show up and be in greatest service to those around you and ultimately the world. And so that starts to get, I know, kind of fluffy, but really that's like why I do what I do, because the ripple effects I know when people are working in their soul work and sharing their gifts are huge. And so that's my wish for you, is to take all of this stuff and implement it so that you can start creating a business around your soul work, even if that's not today, right? That might be that your primary revenue streams right now are through survival work funnels. That's okay, as long as you have your eye on how can you start to create your business around your soul work. So that's a lot, 30 minutes nonstop of me talking. So let's recap. So we've got goals. We've got what's your revenue goal. We've got your revenue streams, your offers, and making sure that you've got a combo in there of survival work and soul work until you can be doing all of your soul work. We've got pricing and how to do that in a way that feels aligned and have fun with it. It doesn't need to be stressful or scary. And then also the volume. So how do you set up your business so it's something that you love working within and it doesn't actually take away from what most people get into business around, which is wanting freedom, right? Wanting to have freedom, wanting to have self-expression. And when we get that piece wrong, sometimes that can feel off. So I'm going to open this up for questions. If anyone has questions, we can do some coaching. If you want to come on live, you just ask me, you just request to come on, but also totally fine if you just want to put it in the chat box there. And what I will share is that if you want to go deeper into this, on March 27th, I'm going to be hosting a half-day business strategy retreat online. And we're going to be really getting into how to craft your offer so you can communicate the value of it, how to get to a place where the pricing feels aligned, and we'll do some work. You'll have lots of other entrepreneurs there with you, so you can actually play with each other and see how the pricing feels and get feedback on that. And then we're going to create your 90-day action plan, so your quarterly plan, because having those 90-day business goals to execute this business model is key. So you can have a solid business model, but it's just a piece of paper unless you bring it to life through your 90-day goals. Hey, Natalie, how are you? Yeah, great to see you on here. All right, so anyone who's on here live, if you have questions, pop them in. If not, all good. And if you are interested in that reset day, that's what the half-day business strategy session is called. I'm going to be sharing a link in my bio around that, so you can sign up there. We're going to be doing them every 90 days, those reset days. So it's a group experience, and every 90 days they'll be there. You can sign up for just one reset day, or you can sign up for all of them at a discounted rate and then be held through the entire year. So that's there for you. And then also in the bio, if you want a workbook to start helping you work through some of this, there's a free 90-day business strategy workbook that you can download. So go for that as well and get that there. So get strategy. How do you build an equitable pricing to offer reduced pricing or grants? Oh, such a good question. Okay, so this comes up a lot in impact work, right? So I work with a lot of impact entrepreneurs who are wanting to make their offers accessible and also, be able to, create impact through their offers. So the idea here is that this is around, equity, not needing to have the same pricing for everybody. So you can have sliding scales. You can have different pricing tiers for different clients. So I know for myself, I offer female founders discount in my one-on-one work for women entrepreneurs who are just getting their businesses started or looking to scale. And for me, that's a way that I can align my values around supporting women in business with my offers. So you can definitely look at that of creating a sliding scale, different pricing options. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. And that's something that you can also be transparent about. It doesn't have to be something that you kind of do behind the scenes. You can share that because that's a values piece, right? It's a piece that you can actually stand in and say, I value this, and that's how I'm taking action towards that. I had something else that I was going to share about that, but it slipped my mind. Great question. Thank you. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else here in terms of questions, I will wrap that up. And I hope to see you for Reset Day, March 27th. I would love to dive deeper into this with you. There's so much goodness that we can get into. And of course, there's all the inner work stuff too, which is a whole other ball game. But we'll get into that later. Thank you so much for being here. Great to see you all. Have a beautiful Friday.